So let's start the video off with just a demonstration of the kind of thing I'm going to show you how to create. Now, first of all, let me just quickly say, I'm not going to go through every single step. Otherwise, the video would be massive. The process, once you kind of get the basics under your belt, is just repeating the same thing over and over again. So this is what we're talking about. This is my custom dashboard. You can see on the left-hand side, we've got our navigation. We're branded. We've also got some options down the left-hand side for support and so on. We've got information about the actual logged-in user into their account. And if we come in and take a look at things like the orders, this will then show you any or all of the orders. You can click to view the actual order itself. Again, you can see all the information inside there. If you've got downloads, if you make that available, that's in here. You can edit the addresses for your delivery and your billing. So you can see we can come in, click any of these, go and edit any of them. You kind of get the idea. If we come into something like, example, the support section, and you can see we've got some frequently asked questions to help anybody that may be stuck on things. Just a simple accordion, set this up however you want. And then underneath, for anybody that actually wants to get in touch with us, if we don't have a chatbot on here, they can go and just fill out the request form, email us, and everything is done inside the dashboard itself for their My Account. You can log out. You kind of get the idea of how all of this works. But what this does is it gives a much nicer, much more streamlined, much more brandable and professional way of giving people access to their My Account. So now we've seen what we're going to build. Let's take a look at how we're going to build it and what we're going to be using. Now for today's video, I'm going to be using bricks to build this, but let me just quickly say before we go any further, you don't need to use bricks. You could use Elementor, you could use any tools like that. You could even use Gutenberg if you wanted to, or the block editor. It's up to you. Once you've kind of got past the building the overall look of it, all the rest is applicable to any tool that you want to use. Okay, with that being said, let's just build out that basic structure. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a section in with a container inside it. And inside our container, we're going to add a couple of blocks. This is going to be our left and our right hand sections. All we need to do now is select our container and hop over, set this to be horizontal. So we've now got things set up the way that we want. And let's choose the left hand section, come into our style and layout. And let's set this to be something like minimum width of 30%. And then we'll go to the right-hand side and we'll do the minimum width of 70%. So we now have our basic layout set up. And obviously, if you want to style this any way you want, you can kind of do all those things. So what we're also going to do is we're going to set this to be kind of like a full height, or at least a specific height we want to use. So for this example, we're going to choose our section. And from here, we're going to come over to the option for our sizing inside layout one more time. And we're going to set our minimum height, and we're going to set this to be 100 VH in this example. Now, you can use DVH or SVH if you want to. These will all do the same kind of thing. It's up to you which method you want to use. I'm going to stick to VH because it's easier than me trying to explain all the other options that are out there. We're going to do the same thing now for our container. So our inner container, we're going to do the same again. We're going to do our minimum height, 100 VH. And we'll select our first block, which is our left-hand section. And we'll do the same again. So we're going to do our minimum height, 100 VH. And you can see now that fills out the entire left-hand side. And all we're going to do is we're going to just choose to set a background color. I'm going to choose this dark color. And you see now we have our background set up. So now we can start building out our left navigation. Before we do though, let's just add a little bit of good housekeeping and start naming things. So we'll change our block from block to something that makes more sense. And we'll set our main block. Now for me, I like to name things in a way that I can see exactly what element I've used. So if I'm using a container, section, divs, blocks, and so on, I like to include that in there. Just for me personally, it just makes life a little easier. Now, obviously, if you're using BEM naming conventions, which you probably would do in a lot of different circumstances, you can cut that down and just say main content, left nav, whatever you want, and leave the block out of it. Up to you how you name things. And finally, let's just name our container. And we'll say account container. Okay, now I'm going to be using, in this example, Core Framework to speed up the design process. But again, you do not need to be using any kind of framework, but it just speeds things up for me and also speeds things up when I'm demonstrating how it all works. Now, if you want links to all these, they're all in the description down below if you want to check any of these out for yourself. So for our left navigation, let's go and add in the actual content we want to use. So we're going to select the left block and come back over to our elements, and we're going to search for an icon list. We'll pop that into the left-hand section, and you can see that drops in nothing that we actually want. But that's fine, we'll change all of that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into our icon list, into our content, and let's get rid of these additional ones so we can set the first one up and just duplicate it. So at the moment, we've got things set up to stack side by side, and let's change a few things here. First up, let's change the icon. I'm going to use this simple chart icon and change the label from X to dashboard. You see that pops everything inside there. Let's just change any of these. We don't want the background color, so we're going to clear that from here. And we're going to set our color if we need to just using white. And there we go. We'll set our links up a little later. We'll come back and I'll show you how the links all work. So we've got our first one. Now you see this is getting clipped off. So all we're going to do is we're going to set these to stack vertically. You can see that now fills everything out correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times. And I'm going to change the icon and the text accordingly. I'm not going to make you watch me do this, so let's just skip ahead. Okay, so there's our first set placed in there. Let's set these up to be aligned to the left-hand side. And as we can see, everything's just sitting a little close to the edges. So let's go back to our left nav block. And what we're going to do is we're going to pop into our style, into our layout. We're going to go and set some padding inside just. We're going to lock all 4 sides. And I'm simply going to set up space medium, which is part of my core framework. And see now everything is laid out that we want. Now, before we go any further, what we can also do is come back to our icon list, come back to our content, open our first one up, and let's go and set our hover states as well. So to do that, we'll just come to our pseudo classes and set this to hover, and then you can easily come in and set the color. We'll choose this nice teal color, which should come out my brand color. And again, I can just repeat this across all of these different sections. Once I've set all those up, all I need to do is deselect, and we've now got our hover state. So let's save this and just check everything is working. And there we go. When we hover over any of these, we can see we now get the hover effect. So all that is set up. Now, before moving on, here's a quick message from today's video sponsor, Hostinger. Kickstart your WordPress journey with Hostinger's high-performance hosting solutions and 24/7 chat support. You can ensure your site shines bright with plans to suit every need. With options including free automatic migration, one-click WordPress install, light-speed acceleration, auto updates, and a vulnerability scanner. Plus, you can experiment safely with their WordPress staging tools, back up with a click, and let their WordPress AI help you out where needed. With prices starting at just $249 per month with 2 additional free months free of charge. Now discover more via the link in the description below. With Hostinger, find the perfect plan for you today. So the next thing we need to do is pop in this additional set of options at the bottom. Again, pretty easy to do. Let's just duplicate this first icon list. We now have 2 of identical icon lists. Let's remove the things that we don't want and just update the information that's in there. And there we go. There's our second block of icons. But you'll notice we have a problem. They just sit one underneath the other, which is not what we want. Very easy way to deal with that. We're going to choose our first icon list. We're going to wrap this in a block. Choose our second icon list and do exactly the same thing. So now both of our icon lists are wrapped inside blocks. What we can do is we can come back to our left nav block, which is the parent container for the left-hand navigation. Come over to our content area, and what we're going to do is we're going to use one of these 3 options for the align main axis. We've got space between, space around, or space evenly. For this example, we're going to choose space between, and you'll see now the top section, the top block with the icon list will sit at the top. The second one will sit now at the bottom. So we now get this nice separation between the 2. And anything else we place inside either of those blocks, the top or the bottom one, will sit in the same positions. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say for this first top one, we also want to include our logo. Well, let's go and add that in. Let's choose our logo. We'll add that into our design and put it in the right place, which is above the icon list. We'll select our logo, choose our image. We'll grab this one for now and insert it. And we can see there's our logo sitting at the top. Let's give it a bit of space. Again, we'll come into our layout. And we'll drop some space underneath it. There we go. Pretty cool and very easy. So let's do the same thing now at the bottom. So if we take a look at our example, you can see we've got my name, email address, and my avatar. Let's go and add that in now as well. So for this, we're going to go and add another block. You can see now we're using the block because this fills 100% of the space it's allowed in this example. That's exactly what we want. And now what we can do is we can drop in the elements that we need. Let's pop in a couple of divs. Left one's going to hold our avatar, so let's add an image in. We'll select our image and we'll come over to the content, choose our little dynamic tag, scroll through until we find the options for our user profile. And what we're going to do is we'll say our user picture. You see there's my picture. looking as wonderful as ever. Sarcasm. Okay, so we'll add that inside there. We'll set up any aspect ratios, object fit, and so on. For this example, we're going to just set this to be a specific size. So we'll come into our sizing, and we're going to say our width is going to be 75, and we're going to say our height is also 75. And what we can do now is we can come over into our border, and we can set a radius up inside here, and we'll just say something like 100%. You can see that puts the circle, but we're still showing our full image, so we need to come into layout. All we're going to do is we're going to come into our overflow and set this to be hidden, and boom, we now have a nice round avatar image. Let's come into the second div. What we're going to do inside here is we're going to add in just some rich text. So you can see that just drops some rich text inside. We're just going to delete what's inside there, and we're going to use some dynamic data. So first things first, we're going to come in and we're going to say user profile, and we're going to go and grab first name. We'll put a space in. We'll do the same again. User profile, and we'll just choose last name, but you can use whatever method you want. There we go. There's our first one. And what we'll do is we're going to duplicate that. On our second entry, we're going to get rid of what's in there, and we're going to just simply add in another user profile, and we're going to grab the user email. Pretty cool, very easy to do. And then what you need to do is set the color up on this. We'll choose our div, we'll come into our style, come into our typography, we'll set our color, we'll choose white, actually this one, and we'll also set our size, and we'll set this to be text medium. Okay, there we go. Now what we need to do is make sure these sit side by side. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose our block over our content, set these to be horizontal. You can see now things sit side by side. Choose our block one more time, and all we're going to do is come back into content. We're going to put a column gap in. Again, we're going to choose one of my variables. We'll choose medium. Again, you can just put what values you want inside there. You don't need to follow along with these kinds of things. And then finally, making sure that we've got that block, which we're going to rename to make some sense. Call this profile block. And our icon list, we're going to call this support block. Again, like I say, they just make sense. I'm going to call this one main nav block. So now at a glance, we can see exactly what any of these are going to do. Now, obviously, you can get further into this and start customizing to the nth degree, but I'm just going to save that for now. And we've got the basics of what we want set up inside here. So the next thing I want to focus on is actually pulling in the various different endpoints as part of WooCommerce. Now, there's a couple of ways you can achieve this. If you're not using bricks, you can simply use the shortcode. And what we need to do for that is just go into the relevant section. In this case, this is going to be our main content area. We can choose the shortcode option. And whatever you're using, whether you're using Gutenberg, whether you're using Elementor, or any of these tools, they should all have a shortcode option. So we can just drop that inside there, and we just need to pop in the shortcode. And all you need is WooCommerce_my_account. This will all be in the written version of this, so you can just use the link down below if you want to, and you can follow along exactly what I've done. And you'll see that now pulls in this example, the dashboard homepage for my account. So it gives us our welcome message and so on. But if you're using bricks in this example, or probably Elementor as well, we don't need to use that. If we come back over to the elements, do a search for account, you can see there's our account page. Let's click to add that in, and you see that pulls in exactly the same thing. So pretty simple, whichever method you want. Now at the moment, if you're looking at my example and you're following along with me, you're probably thinking, mine doesn't look exactly the same as yours, Paul. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. Yours probably looks more like this, where we've got dashboard and orders, and you kind of see our navigation down the left-hand side is kind of replicated here. The main reason for this is that the template that's being used to pull this in, which is the account page template, also includes the navigation for it. But we don't want that. Now, it's very easy to remove, but there's one caveat to this. So far, I've tried various different code snippets and methods to actually remove this without going in and editing the physical template itself. And the only way you can kind of do it is by using the CSS ability to hide that particular block. Now, this isn't perfect, but because the navigation is relatively small, it's not that big a deal, even though it'll still be in the code. It's not leading you anywhere you don't want access to. But if you know of a reliable way, without editing the actual template files themselves, of removing that through a functions PHP file, code snippet, whatever, please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll take a look at implementing that in future content. But anyway, now we've seen the problem, let's deal with the solution. All you need to do is go into your theme, open up the option for the customizer, come into additional CSS, and we're going to simply put this definition in. This is WooCommerce My Account navigation. This is the container for that particular element inside the setup. Now, it's using Flexbox, so once you hide it, things will space out accordingly. Then all we're going to do is say display none. In other words, don't show it on the page, even though it will still show up in the code. Once you've done that, hit publish, and that will then assign it, and you should find that disappears. You may need to refresh your page. So for example, if we come back in, if I refresh this now just to make sure, I'll reload, we'll say yes, we want to reload it, and we now see that is no longer evident. But like I say, it is still in the code, so just bear that in mind. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. So let's go back into, this time, our right block. So let's close the left down, and we need to put a bit of space inside there. So let's select it, come over to our styles, into our layout, choose our padding and lock all four sides together. And we're going to, again, use some spacing. So we're going to say, for this, we'll have spacing of large, just to give us nice breathing space. And if you want to change content on here, you're going to have to start to go into templates. But if you want to add other things in, like, for example, we'll come to the top, we'll add in a title. We'll set this to be a H1, because it's the only title on the page, but we're also going to style that a little bit smaller. So we'll come into our typography now, and we'll change this over, so you can see it's a bit on the big side. So let's come in and change this. We'll set this to be something like text XL. Once we've done that, now you might find that this doesn't always update, which sometimes happens inside Bricks, which is a little frustrating, but not the end of the world. We're also going to come into our content. We'll change this, pop in something a little bit more meaningful, My Account Dashboard. Come into our layout, and we're going to add some spacing at the bottom. We'll do a space medium. We'll save, refresh this, and there we go. We now have something just a little bit more interesting. So again, if we save this and go and take a look, our dashboard is now starting to take shape. Now, obviously, there's loads more you can do with styling and all those kinds of things. But the next thing I want to show you is how you set these up to go to the relevant parts of the overall dashboard. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that the way that this works is maybe a little different to what you're used to. WooCommerce uses what's called endpoints. Now, it's using endpoints inside the My Account section, but also uses it in other parts of WooCommerce in general. And all they do is they tag the relevant endpoint to the end of the base URL. Sounds complicated, but honestly, it's not. Let me give you a practical example showing you exactly how this works. Let's come back to our first icon list, which is our main navigation at the top. Let's come into orders, for example, and you can see we can choose a link type. So let's open this up, and we're going to choose the option for an external URL, because this gives us a little bit more flexibility over what we do. Internal, not so flexible. So let's choose external, and what we're going to do is we're going to do /my-account, which is the route to the My Account page. Now, we're not going to put the URL before that, because this gives us a little bit more flexibility. If we're setting this up and we want to use it in other places, we don't necessarily want to have the full domain inside there. So this will push it back to the root, in other words, mydomain.com. Then it'll do /my-account and whatever endpoint we want. So for this example, we'll do /orders and another /. So what we've got now is we've got the home page for our account, which is My Account, and then we've got the endpoint tagged on the end of it. So let me show you this in action. Let's save this, preview our page, and now our orders link is working. So what we need to do is click on orders, and that then takes us over to our orders, and you can see the endpoint is now working correctly. So what we need to do is know what all the other endpoints are and then set our URLs up to point to them. So let me show you, and I'll give you a link in the description down below so you can see exactly what they all are if you just want to do it very quickly and just quickly run through this without watching me. So these are all the endpoints that I've been talking about. Orders we've just seen, but you've got view order, which is kind of built in with the click on the link to view the order itself. This will kind of work automatically for us. We've got downloads, edit account, and so on. So we just need to put these in using the my-account / and then the endpoint we want to use. So I'll do one more, and then I'll do all the rest behind the scenes to make life a little easier. So let's open our downloads up, choose our link, set it to be external, do /my-account / and we'll drop in the new endpoint, which is downloads. Now I'm going to do all the rest of these behind the scenes just to make life a little quicker and easier. Okay, so there's our main navigation all set up and configured. Next, all we need to do is handle the ones at the bottom. So again, we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to go and open up our icon list, and you can see if we expand any of these, we've got the same options set inside here. So for now, all I'm going to do is set up the logout option, which again, we're going to set this link to be external URL. We're going to click, drop in my account, and we're going to do customer-logout /. And there we go. So we've now set everything up there. And while I'm here, I'm going to put a bit of space, and there we go. So now we've set the basics of everything up inside here. We've got most of our overall My Account section set up. The next thing we need to do is make sure everything's configured for WooCommerce to know we're going to be using our custom page. Now, the easiest way to handle this is to make sure that you remove the original My Account and then you just set up your new page to use exactly the same URL. So let me show you what I'm talking about. This is my account page currently. So if I quick edit this, you can see my slug is my account or my-account, which is the default for working with WooCommerce. And it makes it a little easier, a little bit more reliable to stick with that. Even though you can change it, I've just found it's a little bit more reliable working this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename the existing My Account, which would be the default you have when you install WooCommerce, and we'll just set this up to be something like, I don't know, 5. It doesn't really matter. We'll hit update. We'll come to My Account one. We're going to do the same thing again here. We're going to quick edit this. We're going to remove the extra and just make sure it says My-Account. Click update. Confirm that's all working correctly. You see there's My Account. Everything is set up the way that we want it to. Now what we're going to do is make sure we come into WooCommerce, come into our settings, come over into advanced, and you can see inside there we've got My Account. Then just make sure that the My Account page points to your account page. And now we come back to My Account page, you can see everything is in place. There's our updated version. We can click on orders. There's our orders. We can click to view our order. We can come into our downloads. You can see we get an error message saying we don't actually have any downloads, which is fine. Our addresses, you kind of get the picture. Everything we need is inside here. If we come into logout at the bottom, for example, and click on logout, you can see this, do you want to confirm and log us out, which obviously we would if we want to be logged out. So we can see that's all working. But you may be asking, well, what about the support? What does that actually do? Because there's no endpoint for that. And you're right, we're going to use a little bit of a cheat here. We're not going to worry about adding another endpoint in, which you can absolutely do, but it becomes a little bit more difficult then to put the content the way you want in. So we're just going to use the same template that we've got set up for all of our My Account page sections, and we're going to duplicate that, create a new page, add that, and then put our own content inside there, and then set that support link up to point to that. Nothing more complicated. So I'm going to fly through this really, really quickly. So all I've done is I've created a new page. I've copied and pasted the overall design for our navigation and our main content area, taken anything out from inside the content area, and then just simply dropped in a simple accordion where we've got some content inside, a contact form. You know, you kind of get the idea of what we're doing here. There's nothing rocket science about this. We've already done the legwork. And now all I need to do is come back out into, well, in here first of all, we can come into the support section. And then from the icon list on the left-hand side, open up the support tab, set this to be an internal post or page, then just point it to the new page you've just created, which is your support page. Job done. And now you can just repeat exactly the same process on the design we've done for the My Account we've just seen in the previous section. So it's just doing exactly the same thing there. And then all you'll have is when you go over to that and you click on support, you have a custom page that looks identical to all the rest, and then they can just jump out of this and go to any of the other sections because all of that works in exactly the same way. Go to your account details, for example. That takes you over to the account details. Now, if you're wondering why the one looks different to the other, it's because that support page is using the older design template that I set up for my original testing of this. That's the only difference here. But hopefully what you've seen is with a little bit of creativity, a little bit of time and effort, and not specifically working with bricks, you can use any tool you want. You could very easily create much nicer looking, more unique, pro, branded, all set up the way you want for anybody that's buying from your site to log in and get a much better end experience than they do with maybe the default WooCommerce My Account section. But as always, I'd love to get your feedback on this, and if you want any of the information I've covered in here, all the links are down below for you to check those out. As always, my name's Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.